true that only people with brains the size of peas believe in God? That is the topic of today's video. While certainly not all atheists would say this, it is certainly the case that in some places, maybe in academic spaces, in college classrooms, college professors, some that are more hostile to theism than others, they would at least imply that really, if you're an intelligent person, you're going to dismiss the idea of God's existence. Certainly, living in any kind of moral system designed by some higher power, that's for people who are kind of stuck in the past, maybe, who can't get through life without their superstitions, and God's kind of a crutch for them. So, let them have their faith. But if you want to be an academic, if you want to be a real contributor to society in the space of thinking or in the sciences, that really you just kind of need to get rid of the idea of God. Smart people don't believe in that. Today, I want to talk about why you shouldn't believe that if it's ever suggested to you, and don't feel like you're in bad company, like you're only in the company of dumb people if you still believe in a being greater than ourselves. In fact, it's actually somewhat foolish to suggest that only dumb people believe in a divine being. It actually only takes like a really shallow, cursory reading of history to realize that some of the smartest people to have ever been on the earth, at least that we have documented in history, they definitely believed in God. And so you're actually in very good company if you are a theist or you believe in a higher power. In this video, I want to talk about 20 or so incredibly smart people who contributed incredible things to a number of different fields, mostly in the scientific fields, and that these people were believers in God. There's a number of lists like this out on the internet and in books and things. I'm using a list from a website, KenCallis.com, I think it's pronounced. He's got a good rundown of 23 of these scientists. I'll link this article down in the description below, but as I mentioned, there's a number of them. So let's talk about these pea brains who believed in a higher power. The first one was Nicholas Copernicus, lived about 500 years ago, and he created a model for the solar system with the sun at the center rather than the traditionally held view of the Earth as the center of the universe. He thought God's design of the universe was mathematical, and that's part of the reason that a lot of it was symmetrical. So that's interesting because it shows us that a lot of these guys believed in God based on logical, rational arguments, not just purely scientific arguments. Because some people will say, oh, well, all those guys lived, a couple hundred years ago. If they knew what we know now about evolutionary theory or Big Bang theory or cosmology or whatever, then they would give up their belief in God. No, some of the reason that they believe was based on rational or logical arguments, and many of those rational or logical arguments that were believed back then are still just as valid today. Johannes Kepler, he was an astronomer who formulated the laws of planetary motion. Must have been a pretty smart guy, especially to do that 400 to 500 years ago. And then we have Galileo, astronomer, physicist, and he is also a Christian. Galileo is probably one of the best known on this list. And then there's Blaise Pascal. He was a mathematician, physicist, theologian, somewhat of a philosopher, and I don't know if you can say for sure that he believed in God. He thought it was possible, though, that God exists. And this kind of led him to come up with this idea of Pascal's wager, which maybe you've heard about. And then Robert Boyle in the 17th century, he came up with the idea of the elements as substances that cannot be further divided, or atomic theory. Another guy, and I'm absolutely going to butcher his name, Anton von Leeuwenhoek. Leeuwenhoek? Maybe. He was a microbiologist, built a lot of microscopes, and debunked the theory of spontaneous generation, which is how some people thought life came out of non-life a long time ago, at least. He's considered the father of microbiology. And then there's Isaac Newton, who's maybe the best known of all of these guys. Lived in the 17th century as well. Some consider him to be one of the greatest, if not the greatest, mathematician and scientist. And of course, he's famous for the law of gravity. And interestingly, in this article, it points out that he actually spent more time writing about the Bible than he spent writing about science. It says he wrote 1.3 million words on biblical subjects. Carl Linnaeus in the 18th century, he is known for his work in botany in Sweden. Leonhard Euler, not too good on my all my European names here. He was a Swiss mathematician who introduced many of the advanced symbols and functions used in higher mathematics today. Antoine Lavoisier was a French chemist who worked on the combustion of oxygen and hydrogen. Michael Faraday spans the 18th to the 19th century, had a lot of contributions in chemistry and electricity. Charles Babbage, he's considered the father of the computer and invented the first mechanical computer in 1837. And then James Prescott Joule, who was the founder of thermodynamics, and after he discovered the principles of thermodynamics, he really opposed Darwin in the theories that Darwin was suggesting for how life developed into the complexity that we see today. Florence Nightingale, you may know her from her contributions to nursing. She felt like God was the one who called her to do that work. Also, Gregor Mendel in the 19th century. You may have studied him in middle school or something like that, his work in genetics and heredity. He was actually a monk and a lifelong Catholic. And Lord Kelvin. Kelvin, you've probably heard that term before, codified the first two laws of thermodynamics and deduced that the absolute zero of temperature is negative 273.15 degrees Celsius. On the Kelvin scale, absolute zero is found at 0 Kelvin. I don't even know what that means, so clearly smarter than me. Joseph Lister in the 20th century, his life getting into the 20th century, just in there, introduced antisepsis procedures which saved millions of lives. James Clerk Maxwell, he was a Scottish mathematician who developed 4 equations for the, quote, second great unification in physics, the first one being done by Isaac Newton. And again, I have no idea what any of that is about. Sir John Ambrose Fleming, he was an electrical engineer and physicist. He invented the vacuum tube and developed radio transmission. George Washington Carver, you may have heard of him. He was an agricultural scientist, farmer who did a lot of work on the benefits of crop rotation to avoid minerals being depleted from the soil. Arthur Compton was an American scientist. He won the Nobel Prize in 1927 for his discoveries on light waves and particles, and he also played a role in the Manhattan Project that developed the atomic bomb. And then Charles Townes, who just died in 2015. He was an American physicist, discovered the black hole at the center of the Milky Way. I didn't know that was there. Invented the laser and shared the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1964. He was a religious man, and he prayed every day and felt that religion was more important than science because religion addresses the most important long-range questions, the meaning and the purpose of our lives. So that's the majority of the list that we have here. And again, I'll link the article down in the description so you can check it out or get this list if you want it and share it with somebody else. I should also mention, though, and maybe I'll make a separate video on this, that there are many, many currently working, very intelligent scientists in the fields of science today that still believe in God. Many of them. And there are people out there who would want you to believe that they don't exist, that no one that's working anymore on anything that's meaningful believes in God, but that's absolutely not true. Maybe we'll discuss that sometime in the future. Just to sum up today's video, there are many, many incredibly intelligent people who've worked in the sciences, given invaluable contributions to it, that believed in God. And I think it should be noted that this only really covers scientists from the Western world. It doesn't cover scientists from the Eastern world or any other parts of the world. So that would be an interesting study in and of itself, because certainly some of them, especially some of the ancient ones that came up with some of the really building blocks of the modern sciences and mathematics, certainly they also believed in a divine being. And before some of you go down in there into the comment section and start saying, oh, well, you can't have this guy on your list because of this thing that he said or this thing that he did or some detail of his life. Look, the reason that I presented 20 plus of these scientists is just to show that there's an abundance of them. Sure, you may be able to find some detail that you think discredits one of them or two of them, but the point is clear. Many incredible scientists and thinkers and mathematicians and physicists of the past believed in God. And so if you're somebody who believes in God, don't let anyone convince you that no one shares your beliefs. You're in really, really good company in these names that I just mentioned for your belief in a divine being. And so the answer to the question of the video, the title of the video is no, not only pea-brained people believe in God. Yeah, there are some pea-brained people that believe in God, but there are also some of the people with the biggest, most intelligent, highest IQ brains out there, historically speaking and currently speaking, that believe in the divine.